Hello everyone, I'm Dick Wolf with the County Buzz. We are here with Sheriff Tim Fuller. We're going to be talking to him in a minute or two about his progress at the jail, ambitions here, and what the status is of our county jail. We'll be back in just a minute.
When it comes to furniture, appliances, electronics, and yard equipment, start with a company you can trust. Badcock Home Furniture and More in Winchester has spent years faithfully serving their community and their customers. Badcock Furniture has always been ahead of the rest when it comes to brand name furniture, appliances, and electronics. That's why Badcock is the best. Badcock continues to renovate their store plan with new top-of-the-line quality products that fit your taste and budget and make your life at home easier than ever. Upgrade your appliances today. Ranges, freezers, refrigerators, microwaves, vacuums, and stay comfortable through the years with air conditioners and infrared quartz fireplace heaters in several sizes and designs. Live healthy and sleep better with iComfort Sleep Systems by Serta, plus sleep accessories, support systems, and foundations from other major brands. Badcock carries state-of-the-art entertainment equipment, TVs, DVD players, home theaters, computers, tablets, printers, and more, and financing is available. Visit Gregor K. Gillum and the staff at Badcock Home Furniture and More today. 405 Bypass Road in Winchester. Call 931-962-4991. We make it easy. We deliver. Badcock Home Furniture and More in Winchester.
Steel Salvage. Looking for ways to clean your garage out and pick up a few extra dollars? Got an old engine block in your yard? If it's metal or wire, it has value, and Steel Scrapyard will pay you for it. Cash money. What scrap, you say? Iron, cast iron, tin, bundles of wires, all sorts. Precious metals like aluminum, copper, brass. Bring top dollar. Even those storm windows and doors can bring you money. Put it on the scale and hold out your hand. Money for scrap at Steels. Located at 504 4th Avenue Southwest in Winchester, they buy and sell almost everything.
Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Dick Wolf, and here with me is Sheriff Tim Fuller. Good morning, Sheriff.
Morning, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and we are running a little bit late. You've been busy. Is that a story of your life?
Well, it's gets quite hectic sometimes. Fridays turn into what seem to be Mondays sometimes.
Yeah, so. Exactly. We noted that you were at the Law Enforcement Committee recently and talked to them about some of the plans that are going on in the jail. Why don't you give us a status report of the jail and our population and how it's doing right now?
We have essentially since 2008 been in an overcrowding situation. And of course, approximately 5 years ago, 2011, we were put on a plan of action by Tennessee Corrections Institute, which inspects our jail, for overcrowding issues. No other problems with the facility or the operation of it on our inspections other than the mere fact of overcrowding. And of course, in more recent times, in the last several months, our population has run up as high as 180. The capacity that we're supposed to be at is 114. For obvious reasons, we knew that was going to be a problem. Leading, 5 years ago when we got put under a plan of action. And of course, our ultimate goal at that time, between us, the mayor's office, and the county commission, was to make it to at least March of this year. The reason being is the current day facility as of yesterday is paid for, which amounts to about $370,000 a year for the last 18 years. And that within itself, and we've maintained the facility as well as we have, myself and my predecessor. We had gotten an architectural firm on board back earlier in the fall of last year. The county commission appropriating money to get architectural services because we know we've got to add space. And we're going through the process right now of trying to nail down not only a plan but a cost of what we're looking at. And of course, our ultimate goal is to be able to construct an addition to the facility the feasibility study showed that we need approximately 140 more beds than what we have today to have a future of approximately 15 years, maybe 20. And all of that is contingent upon growth of our county, is what it boils down
Which
to.
then the county is growing.
And the whole ultimate goal is to be able to construct an addition without any tax increase and to live inside the framework of what the payment is, maybe some additional revenues. And of course, I feel like we've got a pretty good grip on that at this point, but right now we're trying to get not only some finalizations to present to the commission, to present to the different committees that we need to get that process started. Just last weekend, for an example, we had 65 inmates sleeping on the floor. And when I say sleeping on the floor, they're afforded a mattress and so forth, but still they're sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
And it's a huge, it's a huge situation that we're dealing with. If you look back in the history with the jail itself, we've come a long way over the history of 25 years.
Yeah. When they built this facility, as I recall, they've plumbed it for additions. Is that not the case?
It was initially designed and constructed for the possibility of adding on, which plumbing and electrical and gas and so forth was stubbed out of the side of the building for the future, where that we may have to add space.
So that will keep costs under control somewhat.
Right. Plus, the one of the huge costs of any construction a lot of times is site preparation and excavation, and of course the acquiring of property. There is obviously we have the property. The excavation was done of such when this facility was built that shouldn't be a major hurdle at all. So we're fortunate in that regard, and of course the current day facility from a maintenance standpoint, we've done a darn good job through the years with the assistance of the county commission, obviously funding what we needed to adequately keep it maintained.
Yeah. At one of the meetings that I heard you talk about, I know it wasn't a firm figure, but we're talking about a ballpark figure of around $5 million.
Well, that was the ultimate hope.
Oh, I got you.
And we don't know what that's going to look like just yet at this point, but that was the ultimate hope. I don't know, whether it's going to be more or less or in between, but we're trying to get some things nailed down to firm some, hopefully get some figures firmed up here.
Okay, and you mentioned the fact that the county is now in a position, there's no longer spending $300 and some thousand a year for a payment. If we $5 million, we could keep paying that same payment and not have any increase in the budget. Is that what you're aiming for?
That's what our ultimate goal is. And of course, there's another. Besides that payment, there's another facet that is provided for by Tennessee Code annotated, and it's been there for years. It's called a litigation tax on criminal cases that go into court. And our revenue on that side of the house each year is somewhere around $174,000. So that could potentially be applied if we need to as well. And of course, on the other side of it, our more recent history with the income of the facility itself is usually, give or take, $800,000 a year. So
I don't understand that. The jail makes, yeah, okay.
Let me explain that. A lot of people think that when a person is sentenced to the Department of Corrections, that they're immediately taken to the Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections is in the same situation that many of the counties are across the state. Their space is extremely limited, and they call us every so often and say, hey, we've got 10 beds. For obvious reasons, if they were to call today and said, we'll take all of the people that are sentenced to the Department of Corrections, we're going to load them all up and take them. because it is a cost factor. But we do receive $37.50 a day for housing of those inmates by the Department of Corrections. So the money that the 800 number that is the income that we have made from the Department of Corrections in more recent years.
Does that compensation pay what our costs are to house these inmates?
It doesn't dollar for dollar, but it as I've told the commission several times before, it's better than nothing. The last cost assessment we did was approximately 4 years ago, and there's a lot of factors that equate into that cost assessment. Even part of it is obviously my pay and employees and so forth. And at that time, the cost assessment was $59 a day. Now, Department of Corrections, on the other hand, I've seen figures upwards of $72 a day it costs them. And $37.50 is not breaking even by no means. But for obvious reasons, you know, the conception sometimes that people have and so forth is that I can just load up all the people that are sentenced to the Department of Corrections and just take them and just drop them off. I wished it was that simple, but it's not. There's over 40 counties in the state of Tennessee, roughly 46 right now. It's got the same problem with the overcrowding piece. And a lot of things weigh into that. I know in our situation particularly, I can't give you a solid number this morning, but generally speaking, we'll have 20 to 25 inmates that are sentenced to Department of Corrections. So if you take that 25 number out, we're still overcrowded. Where we get hit pretty rough on the front end is what we call pre-sentence. People that have violated community corrections for the third, fourth, fifth time, no bond, they're sitting here waiting to be sentenced, adjudicated, that may be continued in court for whatever reason. And those type of factors weigh real heavy into our population numbers.
What about I don't want to call them less criminal offenses because they are, but not paying child support? There's a number of those in the population.
There is, in child support, for an example alone, the ultimate goal in most cases for the child support referee and of course the district attorney's assistant district attorney that works child support cases is to get a person out working, paying that support. That's their ultimate goal at the end of the day. By virtue of a lot of different reasons, we have quite a few from time to time that's in jail for child support. That is the last resort in the road, so to speak. We have people that are sentenced to X amount of days in jail, or what is referred to as a purge payment. So in other words, a person may be sentenced to 90 days in jail, but yet if they come up with a $2,000 purge payment to get their child support in check, they can be released. There again, we have others that are sentenced to a sentence in jail, but yet is recommended and if approved for work release. And a part of that work release is they essentially work during the day, stay here at jail at night, and they've got to pay X amount of dollars per week toward their child support. And that happens quite a bit. The biggest factor on any jail almost in the state of Tennessee today is drugs. People that are addicted, that have committed, not necessarily principally drug crimes, but secondary crimes such as burglary, theft, those things to support that habit. And just any county that I'm aware of across the state, the number one issue in what we're seeing and people get in trouble for is drug-related crimes.
And let's pause right there,
Okay.
Because that's a good place to stop, and we'll be back in a minute with more with Sheriff Tim Fuller.
Whatever your shipping needs, Mr. Postman is where you want to go. Convenient across from the post office in Winchester. Take your packages or bring the item unpacked and they'll carefully box it and send it off for safe delivery. Anywhere. Yes, in or out of the USA, Mr. Postman can get it there quickly. There's more. Get a box number with a street address. Start a background check with safe and secure fingerprinting. Oh, wait, forgot that card to go with that present? Not a problem. A good selection of cards, funny, faithful, and family. Mr. Postman, across from the post office, Winchester.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Sheriff Tim Fuller talking about the jail. We're talking about the drug problem, which is the answer to that decriminalization or legalization, or how? What is the answer to that? I see we've got a program coming up on the 14th of March about April about marijuana.
I don't mind. A lot of times people wonder what my position is on the decriminalization of marijuana in particular, and I'm against it, and I'll tell you why. We have, as a society, have become to the point that we want to decriminalize certain things, and maybe that could be a good thing. I don't know. But the question to be answered when I think about those things, what I see as a person been involved with drug court since day one, 10 years, the addicts that we're dealing with today in drug court, invariably, the highest percentage of them, the segue to their problem was marijuana. There's another part of that, the segue was alcohol, okay? But at the same time, the question to be answered as us as a society, you tell me where that you can work in a factory setting or a job that doesn't have a drug testing policy. Tell me where. And, I'm of the opinion that if there's a good, legitimate medical use for it, then our Federal Drug Administration needs to anoint that.
Yeah.
Need to lay out those rules
for epileptic children and
rules of the road for that.
Yeah.
But I look at where can you work in today's society without having a drug testing policy, and we've seen it time and time again, especially in law enforcement. The segue to an addiction issue is marijuana, and that's my position on being opposed to the decriminalization. When we say that, there's another segment out there that wants to legalize it. And, they'll throw out hypotheticals that a person is in prison for 2 joints of marijuana serving a lengthy sentence, which, if you look at that particular case, that may be a secondary or thirdary charge to the point that they've been selling cocaine for the last 10 years and finally got caught. And then you got the folks that want to legalize it, focus on, oh God, this person's serving time for this 2 or 3 joints, and that's not the case. But that's my thinking behind it, for obvious reasons. Whatever the legislature and of course Congress deems to do in this regard will enforce the law as it should be. But at the same time, a lot of what we're seeing in the drug world today is the more serious, we're experiencing heroin here in this county now. Of course, meth, of course, marijuana, crack cocaine, and the pill problem is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And of course, another facet to that aspect is when people get in trouble. The first thing that a mother and dad and aunt and uncle and grandpa and grandma wants to do is run out and get little Johnny out of jail. Are they getting little Johnny out of jail to go back and overdose next time and die? Because we see it.
Yeah.
We experience it. It's an enabling mindset sometimes. And there's got to be, at some point, a checks and balances. Say, hey, enough's enough. I'd rather see little Johnny sitting down at the county jail in Orange than I had going up here to the funeral home and making arrangements.
Yeah.
And that's a societal thing. And, you've got to weigh out the circumstances there as a parent, as a grandparent, so forth. But that's one of the advents The creation of drug court in my career has been one of the better things that I've seen. For obvious reasons, it affects us. It and the reentry program that we have affects us from a recidivism standpoint. If it were not for those two programs today, we would be talking about a 200 plus number in our county jail today.
Right, and you brought up something that I was hoping we would talk about toward the end of this, but here it is. So I will put aside for a moment talking about health care for the inmates. So let's stay with what you're talking about: drug court, recidivism. You've got a reentry program.
Right.
So this is the Department of Corrections working with the counties to keep that pipeline fewer inmates in
Right.
it.
And I've, dating back in time, it took me a number of years. This is my 34th year in this profession. And it took me a number of years to realize locking them up and throwing away the key wasn't working. And when you've got people that are fighting the addiction monster and dealing with that, there's been some secondary things that come to play. And of course, I've had the philosophy in the more recent years that when you got them in jail, do something with them. And that was sort of the segue into our reentry program, because we experience so many people that come into jail that A, doesn't have a high school education, B, they've never had a meaningful job in a lot of cases. And we try to focus on when they leave the facility that they have gotten that GED, that they have gotten prepared to go interview for that job. So many times people come in jail and won't even have something as simple as an identification. And part of the reentry program focuses on setting these folks up to be able to get out, hopefully get directed into a job. For an example, last year and a half alone, Miss Christine Hopkins in the reentry program has been able to put 172 people to work that's come out of jail.
That's amazing.
And they're still working, they're not coming back to jail. You may want to think about doing a story with her alone at some point.
And we have thought about that and this reentry program.
Drug court brings on a whole different dimension. And for so many years, people with addiction problems and drugs and alcohol both were coming into the system. It's sort of like being in a gerbil cage and you can't ever get out, if that makes sense.
That makes too much sense.
And so the people that's honest to God got those problems. Now there's a mechanism throughout the state of Tennessee in our drug courts, and basically what it boils down to is not only are we're providing services for as counseling, for as treatment, those things, but we're holding them extremely accountable for where they're at. You start out in drug courts, you may be drug tested 5-6 times a week. You may be sent to 3-6 month, a year long-term treatment somewhere. It depends on what the assessment says you need. And we have been very successful with that. The focus is on putting a person back out in society, knowing how, given the tools, how to deal with their addiction, and being able to be a productive citizen, but yet not getting back in trouble doing the bad things.
Do we have, you mentioned not only drug kind of issues, but training and being ready to accept a job when they
Yes.
leave here. Are there any programs in jail, programs for that?
With Christine's program, with the reentry program, matter of fact, right now they've got a class that is focusing on injection molding, because we have injection molding as a employee demand here in Franklin County because of the automobile industry. And she's got a class right now that's focusing on injection molding. So when those folks complete that, I think it's a 9-week program, and when they complete that 9-week program, they will be certified to go in to a job in injection molding. And she has some agreements with some of our factories here to put people to work.
And these are inmates that go to this class and then
Right.
come back? Okay.
Right.
And then the other thing, you've got a work program. The other day they just approved, and I think you're going to get a final approval on the from the county commission on this coming week on a state
Yes.
litter grant program. Does that help alleviate some of the pressures inside the jail when the men and women can get out and work?
It does. At any given day, we've got 30 to 40 inmates going out to work somewhere. And I could do a whole story on work-related programs with what we're doing with that. But the more recent one, we were approached by the Department of Transportation, State Department of Transportation, about providing litter pickup for our state highways. And it's 100% funded by the Department of Transportation, State Department of Transportation, to provide litter pickup for the state highways. And for years, we've had a litter program that focused on local, rural, county, city roads to pick up litter, but in this particular program, it's eerily specific to state highways. And that will be coming before the county commission on Monday night for their approval. It's 100% funding with the Department of Transportation. And actually, it's one of the first of its kind across the state, as we were explaining to it, because our work program is so robust and we do so many things with working of inmates.
You talk about a robust program, and I'm going to invite you to pat yourself on the shoulder if you want to, but I think you should probably pat Dennis Young's shoulder too. But Franklin County seems to be at the forefront of many of these law enforcement new ideas.
Right.
We're doing them here first. Why is that?
We're blessed for a lot of reasons, and people sometimes I don't think realize it. Sometimes we're blessed for a lot of reasons. Dennis and I both are wired up in a lot of the same ways. We get along well. We don't get me wrong, we have our differences occasionally.
I understand.
But it's dealt with behind closed doors and we move on. But at the same time, when we have an issue like meth, like other things that hit, he and I both will always invariably come together and try to take a proactive approach with it, and that has led us to a lot of different facets in the world that we live in. But we're blessed here, and then of course the advent of the Prevention Coalition,
Yes.
a lot of times helps us be able to fund initiative that we see that we need to engage up in, but we may not have the financial means to get us there. And I use a small example, very small example, that is a drug take-back program. That was brought to Dennis and I were sitting beside of each other when that was suggested to us by our former U.S. Attorney, Russ Dedrick, many years ago, and he and I talked about it all the way home from Knoxville about how can we do this. And of course, with that, the advent of the Prevention Coalition and their
With
grant
Tabitha
funding,
Curtis.
we were able, that's just one of many things we were able to do. And we've been very, very blessed across the board with the concern, the care that our chiefs of police has, our Prevention Coalition, and we've been blessed. I'll tell anybody, we have been blessed here in Franklin County with a good county commission. This is actually the second full commission that I've worked with, third full commission I've worked with since I've been sheriff, but we've been blessed with that. We really have. We may not always agree, but we can agree to disagree at the end of the day if we need to.
Yeah, and Franklin County has made a name for itself in ferreting out child pornography
Right.
issues.
Dennis, in particular, in the city of Winchester, is one of, I think, 4 ICAC units across the state.
ICAT?
ICAC. It's Internet Crimes Against Children, I think is what that stands for. And he's one of 4, or maybe 5, but anyhow, they have took that and done a great job with it on child pornography issues in particular. And prior to that, we were experiencing our share of that with the advent of technology, computers, I remember the first child pornography case we ever made, and it was just phenomenal where it was then versus where we're at today. And but Chief had took that and had the opportunity to get grant funding to help them get that up and running, and it's super beneficial because these are the folks, in my opinion, that jail is really meant for a lot of times.
Yeah. It's just sometimes a lot worse than a jail.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But as we all know today, and we see it as technology progresses, the more crimes that are facilitated, and actually you have more to deal with in that aspect in the criminal justice world with the advent of technology. That's probably the downside to technology in some ways, but the upside is it's made us, I feel like, across the nation, better prepared in law enforcement than ever before.
We should be wrapping this up, but there's a couple of other things I really want to address. So number one, you mentioned, and we talked earlier about the fact of health costs on the inmates.
Right.
At a meeting a few days ago, you brought up the subject that we might be privatizing or looking into privatizing that. Why don't you explain that for us?
We're entertaining that possibility, and here's why. And we're looking at it from a financial standpoint. If we can save money but yet provide the adequate care that is needed, and we can save money, we can do things better. Sure, we're looking at several different aspects of that, and we're spending quite a bit of money per year by no choice of ours, obviously, but it's what the needs are.
Yeah, how can you give us a dollar figure?
Right now, on an average year, between what is needed for the inmate health care, and of course we have 2 nurses on staff, we have a doctor that is essentially on a call basis. We're spending somewhere around $370,000 a year on health care for inmates. Now, that number at any given time can be affected by, for obvious reasons, we call it catastrophic events. Thank God above we hadn't had one of those in a while, and I hope we don't. But that number can fluctuate. It can go down, it can come up. But so many times the people that we deal with in the correctional facilities world is a lot of times they come in, their health is deplorable because they have abused their bodies with drugs for years, been involved in some bad things, crashes, shootings, whatever the case may be. So we're not dealing with in a lot of cases, the average health issues that you would think of with somebody that's 45 years old and working down at the factory. We're dealing with people that have abused drugs and so forth, and that brings on another aspect. And of course, we're dealing with disease every day on a daily basis of hepatitis B, C, and AIDS.
Are you looking to roll that in for the next fiscal year? Or is that we'll be debating that between now and the 1st of July?
It's very possible if we can get some numbers crunched down to know what when we came before the Finance Committee the other day, we were basically wanting to get their feedback to be able to go back and say, hey, this is the road we need to travel to get some answers. And is it more beneficial for us to privatize that, or is it more beneficial to us to do what we're doing today, which is basically on our own?
Okay, and then one final thing, where the city of Winchester gave permission to Dennis, or they're in the process of giving permission to have him hire a new person.
Right.
And it has to do with people taking time off and vacations and other things. What's your staffing circumstances here at the Sheriff's Department?
I've been blessed for a long time. Of course, we have overtime, and it's been cut in the last 15 years. Actually, overtime's been minimized, cut some. But hours, we have part-time that we utilize to fill in those gaps for vacations, sick time,
I got you.
whatever the case may be. So we're in a real good situation with that right now. Of course, here again, a lot of things that play into that for obvious reasons. We have the SROs, and the SROs work in the normal cycle so much over the normal day with different school activities and events.
This is school resource
Right,
officers.
school resource
SRO.
officers, that the majority of the time to take their time off to balance it, they take off the summer.
I got you.
There's some of those guys that may not have enough time to take off all summer, so that's where they can be plugged into the schedule to take up the slack where we got our regular road deputies that are taking off for vacation or whatever the case may be. So we're really fortunate from the standpoint of where we're at right now. Could we use more help? Absolutely, everybody could. But will I be asking for any in the near future? Unless something unforeseen happens, no. But we're in a real good situation right now.
And on that, I want to thank you
Thank you.
for today, and thank you all for tuning in to the Franklin County Buzz. If you're watching us on Channel 3, look for us on YouTube or the Franklin County Buzz. Anytime you want, you can see us. Thank you for watching. I'm Dick Wolf.